Chosen one, lock your attention on this message right now. That noise in your head telling you that you've been forgotten. Stop it cold. The enemy is working overtime today for one reason, and one reason only. He knows what you're about to receive. It all shifts in the next 24 hours. The silence, the confusion, the invisible pressure that's been sitting on your shoulders since the beginning of this week. But here's what you need to understand before I go any further. It's not shifting because things finally lined up. It's shifting because of what you have already done. Think back to that moment this week when you wanted to respond. When every part of you wanted to defend yourself, wanted to fight back, wanted to make sure they understood what they did to you. But you held your tongue. You walked away. You chose silence over war. You didn't know it in that moment, but that decision detonated something in the spirit realm. That single act of restraint was not weakness. That was the moment the court of heaven ruled in your favor. You didn't delay your breakthrough. You triggered it. Something stopped everything else you were supposed to encounter today to reroute you to this exact message. So anchor your spirit, because what I'm about to deliver is not motivation. This is a verdict. You did not find this recording by accident. The algorithm did not bring you here. The Holy Spirit did. This is a divine appointment, and it was scheduled before the foundations of the earth. You are not stumbling through this season blindly. You are standing at a threshold. Stay until the final second of this message, because in the next few minutes, I'm going to hand you the specific decree that cancels the assignment the enemy placed against your name this season. I'm going to show you the exact moment this week where you unknowingly activated your next chapter. And at the end, I'm going to seal this verdict with a declaration that locks the door on everything that was never supposed to follow you into what comes next. Do not leave this message early. Your future self is on their knees, asking you to stay. Because if you click away now, you risk reopening a door that God has already permanently shut. My name is Zerekiel. I have spent years studying the hidden architecture of the spirit realm, the warfare, the divine timing, the weapons that most chosen ones are never handed, because no one taught them they existed. And I have walked over 10,000 people through the exact kind of threshold you are standing at right now. If this is your first time here, subscribe and hit the notification bell immediately. Not because I need the numbers, because the next message I release might be the one written specifically for the war you will be fighting tomorrow morning. Now let me tell you what this last stretch has actually felt like. Not in general terms. In specific ones. The atmosphere has not just been quiet. It has been thick, heavy in a way that has no clean explanation, like the pressure that builds in your ears right before a storm breaks open. Maybe you were sitting alone at some point in the last 72 hours, not doing anything dramatic, just sitting. And a wave of exhaustion hit you so deep, it did not feel like tiredness. It felt like grief. Like something in you was mourning, and you could not name what. Or maybe you woke up at 3 a.m. this week, eyes open before your mind was fully awake, lying there in the dark with your heart moving too fast, scanning the room, feeling that something was wrong, but finding nothing. Nothing you could point to. Nothing you could explain to anyone without feeling like you were losing your mind. You feel suspended, like you are caught between two worlds, the one you were trying to leave and the one you were promised. And neither one feels real right now. And in that suspension, the enemy has been planting a very specific lie. Listen to your own thoughts right now. He is telling you that the reason you are stuck, the reason things feel sealed shut, is because of a mistake you made. He is running footage in your mind on a loop. That moment when you disengaged. That moment when you stepped back instead of forward. That moment when you stopped showing up the way you thought you should. That moment when you got quiet when everyone expected you to keep going. He is telling you that moment was failure. He is telling you that because of that specific decision, your blessing has been postponed. That God looked at that moment and reassigned what was meant for you. But I need you to hear what the Word of God actually says about this moment. Nahum 1-9 says, "What do you conspire against the Lord? He will make an utter end of it. Affliction shall not rise up the second time. Let that land. Affliction shall not rise up the second time." The enemy needs you to believe you're in a cycle. He needs you to believe that the lap you just completed is beginning again. He needs you to step back into the wilderness voluntarily, under the illusion that you caused the delay, because if you believe that, you will never look for the door that is already open. But that is not a cycle you are in. That is a conclusion. The heaviness pressing against your chest right now is not the weight of punishment. It is not evidence of God's absence. It is the weight of finality. It is the specific tension that lives inside the last moment before something breaks permanently open. You think staying silent was weakness. You think walking away was defeat. You think going quiet while everything pressed against you meant you failed some test you were supposed to pass differently. Let me reframe your reality right now. That was not failure. That was precision. That was a move so exact, so strategically placed that the enemy cannot recover from it. That silence was not the moment you lost ground. That was the moment heaven signed the decree. You are not starting over. You are not behind. You are not disqualified. You are finishing. What does it mean to finish? Most people assume finishing looks like a triumphant arrival. Flags waving, doors swinging open, confirmation flooding in from every direction. But I want you to understand something that will reframe every silent moment, every delayed answer, every season that felt like abandonment. Finishing, in the spirit realm, is almost always quiet. It is almost always invisible. And it is almost always mistaken for something going wrong. What you are in right now is not a waiting room. It is a finishing room. And there is a profound difference between the two. Some messages don't just inform, they activate. If something stirred deep in your spirit just now, you may be ready to receive the chosen one's mantle. This sacred guide reveals the 12 divine codes behind your calling, your suffering, and your destiny. The codes that turn the life heaven already wrote over you into the life you actually walk. The link is in the first pinned comment, but only for a limited time. Now let me take you somewhere in Scripture that most people overlook, because they read it as a story about a battle, when it was actually a story about a threshold. In 2 Kings chapter 6, Elisha and his servant woke up to find their city surrounded, horses, chariots, an entire army encamped against them. The servant looked out and saw only what was visible and said, "Alas, my master, what shall we do?" And Elisha, without panic, without performance, without any dramatic display of spiritual authority, simply prayed and said, "Lord, open his eyes." And when the servant's eyes were opened, he saw the mountain full of horses and chariots of fire surrounding Elisha. The enemy's army was already outnumbered. The servant just couldn't see it yet. Here is what I need you to understand about that moment. Elisha was not moved by what surrounded him, because he had learned to see differently. Not with more information, not with better circumstances, but with opened eyes. And that is the first thing that has to shift inside you right now. Because the enemy's greatest weapon against you in this season has not been the opposition. It has been your perception of the opposition. He has been manipulating the scale, making what is surrounding you look larger than what is surrounding him. But the moment your eyes open, you will see what Elisha's servant saw. You were never the outnumbered one. And here is where it goes deeper, because opened eyes alone are not enough. Elisha didn't just see clearly. He knew how to hold his position while he waited for the manifestation to catch up with the revelation. This is where most chosen ones break. They receive the vision, they feel the confirmation. They know in their spirit that something has shifted. And then they let the delay between the vision and the visible erode everything they just received. They begin to negotiate with the silence. They begin to interpret the quiet as contradiction. And in that negotiation, they slowly talk themselves back out of what God talked them into. But here is what's coming that will challenge everything you've been taught about waiting. Stay with me, because this is the part that breaks the cycle permanently. Before we get there, I need you to understand the anatomy of what has been attacking your mind this week, because it is specific and it is strategic. The enemy is not a reckless being. He does not waste resources. He does not deploy heavy opposition against people who are not a threat. So I need you to think carefully about why the warfare has been so concentrated, so personal, so precisely aimed at the exact places where you are most vulnerable. He has not been attacking your weakness. He has been attacking your assignment. And those are two entirely different targets. Your weakness would not require this level of coordinated pressure. A person going nowhere does not attract this level of resistance. The specific nature of what you have been experiencing, the mental fog, the relational friction, the sudden disappearance of momentum that had been building, that is not random affliction. That is targeted interference. And targeted interference only gets deployed when something real is being protected on the other side of the breakthrough. Think about Daniel. The angel who arrived in response to his prayer told him explicitly, "I was dispatched the first day you prayed, but the Prince of Persia withstood me for 21 days. 21 days. The answer was already sent. The decree was already written. But there was warfare in the atmosphere between the promise and the arrival. Daniel did not cause the delay. Daniel did not disqualify himself. Daniel sat in the tension of unanswered prayer and held his fast. And what broke the delay was not more striving. It was not more prayer. It was not a grand act of spiritual performance. It was his sustained posture, his refusal to abandon the position he had taken before God. That is what you have been doing. And what's coming next will likely surprise you, because what most people call passive, heaven calls strategic. Your stillness has not been inactivity. Your silence has not been surrender. Your decision to stop fighting battles that were never yours to fight has not been avoidance. It has been discernment. And discernment at this level is one of the rarest and most dangerous weapons a chosen one can carry, because it requires you to trust what you cannot see, to hold what you cannot explain, and to remain in position even when every visible signal is telling you to move. But here is the thing about discernment that no one teaches clearly. It costs something. It costs you the approval of people who need you to perform. It costs you the comfort of looking like you have it together. It costs you the illusion of control. Because real discernment sometimes looks like standing completely still while everyone around you is telling you to do something, anything. Just stop being so quiet. Stop being so withdrawn. Stop looking like you've given up. But you have not given up. You have dug in. And there is a difference that eternity will make clear even when the present moment makes it look like failure. And this leads us to something most people miss entirely, something beneath the surface of spiritual maturity that almost no one is willing to name out loud. There is a grief that comes with growth. Not the grief of loss in the way we typically understand it, but the grief of becoming. When you are genuinely transitioning, not metaphorically, not aspirationally, but actually crossing a threshold between who you were and who you are called to be, there is a dying that happens. Parts of you that served a purpose in the old season have to be released. Identities you built for survival. Coping mechanisms that kept you functional in broken environments. Relationships that were never meant to carry the weight of your destiny. And the enemy knows that grief is disorienting. So he positions himself inside your grief and whispers that what you're losing means God is taking things from you, when the truth is that God is making room. What feels like subtraction is preparation. What feels like emptying is enlargement. Ruth understood this in the fields of Boaz. She had already lost everything that should have defined her security. She was in a foreign land, gleaning grain behind harvesters, a position that by every social and cultural measurement of her day signaled that she was at the bottom. But she kept showing up. She maintained her posture in a position that felt undignified because she had committed herself to a direction, not a destination. And the harvest she received was not just provision. It was a repositioning that changed the entire trajectory of her lineage. You are not at the bottom. You are in the field. And the grain you are gathering in this season looks nothing like the harvest it is preparing you for. Stay with me, because coming up is the specific thing that has been feeding the delay. And it's not what the enemy told you it was. Because here is where the narrative has to shift. And this is the part that is going to require something from you. Not just reception, but honesty. The kind of honesty that sits still long enough to look at something uncomfortable without immediately defending yourself against it. There is a pattern that lives in people who carry heavy callings. It is not a character flaw. It is not evidence of spiritual weakness. But it is a cycle that, if it is not named, will keep repeating regardless of how much breakthrough you experience. And the pattern is this: you have been more comfortable with being overlooked than you are with being seen. I know that sounds counterintuitive. You are standing in this message desperate for confirmation, hungry for recognition from heaven, asking God why the visibility hasn't come, why the platform isn't growing, why the doors that should have opened haven't opened yet. And yet, somewhere in the architecture of your story, there is a place where you have quietly made peace with being misunderstood, where you have learned to find safety in the margins, where the idea of walking fully into what God called you to actually terrifies you more than staying in the tension of almost. This is not an accusation, this is a mirror. And I am holding it up because the most dangerous enemy you are facing right now is not a demonic assignment. It is a hidden agreement. An agreement that says the cost of full visibility is too high, that the weight of your calling is too much, that the person God sees when he looks at you is someone you have not yet given yourself permission to become. And until that agreement is broken, you will keep attracting the threshold and stop just before you cross it. You will keep getting close enough to taste the breakthrough without walking through it. Not because God keeps pulling it back, but because some part of you keeps pulling yourself back at the last possible second, disguising retreat as humility, disguising fear as waiting on God. This is the hidden root. And here is the part you did not expect. The silence this week was not just God protecting you. It was God waiting on you, waiting for you to decide not just whether you believe the promise, but whether you believe you are the one the promise belongs to. Because heaven has already moved. The decree has already been written. The angel was dispatched on the first day. But you are standing at the edge of what was prepared for you, and you are still asking whether you deserve to walk into it. You do not have to earn what was given to you before you were born. You do not have to perform your way into an inheritance that was sealed before the foundations of the earth. You do not have to fix everything first, heal everything first, understand everything first. You are allowed to step into it broken and brilliant and unfinished and trembling, because the threshold was built for the real you, not the version of you that finally has it together. The final shift is this: stop waiting to feel ready. Readiness is not a feeling, it is a decision. And the decision you made this week, when you held your tongue, when you walked away, when you chose something higher than your own vindication, that was not a small thing. That was you deciding, even unconsciously, that your destiny was worth protecting more than your pride. And heaven registered that decision before you finished making it. The door is open. It has been open. The only question is whether you will finally walk through it as yourself. All of yourself. Every unresolved piece. Every question you haven't answered yet. Every wound that is still healing. Because the God who called you did not call a finished version of you. He called the real one. And the real one is standing right here, right now, at the exact threshold where everything changes. Place your hand on your heart and declare this with me. I release the lie that my silence was failure. I release the agreement that I am not the one the promise belongs to. I release every label placed on me by people who could not see what heaven sees. I break agreement with the fear that has disguised itself as patience. I break agreement with the comfort of being overlooked. I step forward, not because I am ready, not because everything is resolved, but because I was called before I was formed, and that calling does not expire. I receive the verdict that heaven already rendered over my name. I receive the shift that has already been released in the spirit realm. I declare that what was assigned against me this season is cancelled, that what was meant to follow me into my next chapter no longer has access, and that I step across this threshold carrying nothing that was never mine to carry. I am seen, I am chosen, I am finishing, and I will not turn back. If this word confirmed what your spirit already knew, do not leave this moment without taking it further. Share this message with someone who is standing at the same threshold and needs to hear what you just heard. And if you are ready to go deeper into the architecture of your calling, into the specific codes, the specific weapons God has been trying to hand you, subscribe and stay close. Because what is coming next was written for the next battle you are about to face. You did not find this channel by accident, and you are not finished yet.